Hey guys, my name is Heather Lindsey.
And my name is Cornelius Lindsey.
And I'm so excited that you landed on Life with the Lindseys.
This is so exciting. This gives us an opportunity to share our life with yours.
Yes, we're going to be talking about everything from entrepreneurship to ministry to your purpose to why you are here, family, parenting, relationships, marriage, sex, you name it. We are talking about it.
So thank you so much for joining us today with Life with the Lindseys. Enjoy it.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, everybody. I'm Heather.
This is Cornelius.
I don't know what we're talking about today because you didn't tell me.
Now, you know what, the Bible says you can't get in.
Baby.
You can't get in.
Oh, I'm getting into heaven. You better believe it. I did not go through all this stuff on this earth and die to my flesh every single day to go to hell. No, I'm going to heaven. Are you going?
Huh?
Are you going?
I don't know if he got a slim section. I can get in there. But what the Bible say by the skin of your teeth, I'm gonna slide on in. Thank you to
Baby,
Jesus.
You are saved.
Thank you for grace.
So you're saved because I know you.
Absolutely.
But you said we're talking about happiness. What does that mean?
Okay, so I have some questions. I just want to ask you some questions.
Okay.
And we're gonna have us a conversation, y'all. So okay.
For it. It's your fine self. You're looking all buff.
Come through. Might be because my shirt a little tight, but you know what it is though. That's what it is though.
Can you take it off so I can just look at you?
No, I'll take it off later, baby. Right now we gotta work. See, the Bible says there's a season for everything under the sun.
That's true.
Right now we in a season.
You reel
of work.
me back in.
I gotta reel you back in. Sometimes I be like, we gotta finish this. Okay. See, and then you're making me lose my train of thought. Now I'm over here thinking about some
questions. I
did. I have some questions. What the heck were we talking about? Oh, happiness. Okay. All right. Bring it back together. We ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question I will ask has a follow-up question dependent upon whether or not, however you answer the first question. So the first question is do we have a right to be happy? And the follow-up question, if yes, then is it godly? Lego.
Okay, so first I define happiness as based on your circumstances, right? And to me, happiness can fluctuate based on your emotions or your feelings or how you wake up and feel that day. You could be happy in general and wake up in a bad mood because you're on your period or you're pregnant or you're having hormone, whatever. Mm-hmm. So to me, happiness fluctuates. Now, joy, I believe joy is a choice. And joy is based on knowing who God is.
Bring it back.
Okay, what do you mean, babe?
Answer my question.
Okay.
Do we have a right to be happy?
I would say, yeah, we have a right. It's a choice.
Okay. And the follow-up question, if so, is it godly?
I believe it is. Like you said in the beginning, there's a season on the sun for everything. So you have days where you're going to be happy and days where you're not going to be not so happy.
Yeah. It was interesting because the reason why I asked the follow-up question, well, I also agreed. In answering the question, should we be happy? I said unequivocally, do we have a right to be happy? Unequivocally, yes. Now, I can be extremely theoretical or extremely, pointed in the answer and say no, because we really don't have a right to anything. As we come to Jesus Christ, we lay it all down at his feet. Therefore, we don't have a right to, we don't have a right for justice. We don't have a right for anything. We shout that we want that. We don't have a right for justice because we all deserve vengeance. We all deserve revenge. We all deserve damnation. We don't have a right for anything. But in the sense, not trying to be too theoretical at this point, asking the question, do we have a right for happiness? The reason why I had the follow-up question, and that is it godly, is because I don't want to use the words, I heard it from the church. I will use these words, and me being very careful in the words that I use, I will use the words that I think over time, I assumed that the primary message that I received from the pulpit in me learning was that God didn't care anything about my happiness. And the one line that I can remember over and over again is God doesn't care, that I have also shared and preached, that God doesn't care about my happiness. He cares about my holiness. And I think that in itself started me down this journey to really begin to understand happiness and what happiness is. That's the reason why I was like, hey, we should have this discussion today to talk about happiness. Now, let me, because you were going somewhere, and I want you to finish where you're going. That was happiness and joy. Okay, go ahead.
So my thing, as you were talking, I was thinking, we talk about happiness and holiness, right? God's called us to be holy and not happy per se. Mm-hmm. But if you're single and it makes you happy to have sex, That's obviously not God, right?
Well, I mean, and here's the thing. Here's the thing. Where I walk away with what I walk away with is this. I think so often in my head, what I'm trying to do a better job of is not try to put periods in places where I can put commas. I'm not trying to make everything so black and white where I can't see things in aisles of gray. Now, going back to your question, you're single and you find happiness in
And
having
sex
sex
outside of marriage with a bunch of different people.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know. I on the surface layer, the answer would be. I mean, biblically, the answer would be absolutely not. That's not holy. But I think that it is important. I don't think that question in itself will fully encapsulate happiness, because maybe the happiness is not having sex with different people. Maybe what is making you happy is the fact that somebody is actually caring enough about you, even in that moment, even though it is plastic, even though it's not real, they care enough about you in that moment to relate with you.
Yeah.
So it may not even be the sex. I think sometimes we misdiagnose the issue. We think the issue is sex. Like, okay, I'm happy because I'm having sex.
Yeah.
But it's not the sex that you are happy with. It is the fact that somebody in that moment
It's
sees
giving you attention, and you have an attention issue.
Exactly.
Or a deeper rooted problem.
Exactly.
Undiagnosed. That's fair.
Exactly. So that's why the question in itself, I mean, it could be very, on the surface level, it's like, oh yeah, it's very easy to answer. Like,
I just feel like
biblically.
the holiness message still gets attacked. Like, I still, to this day, people be like, y'all waited to kiss till you get married. You're making rules and laws. That's not it. Like, we shared that we waited to kiss until our wedding day because God told us to do it.
That was something he told us to do. We don't we've never made that a rule of law.
No, but I feel like people hear your story and they're like, wait, that has to be the only way. No, I know people that kissed and they're happy and they're great and they have great marriages. Like,
yeah,
we should put a rule around it.
And that's the reason why in the beginning I said I didn't want to say something like, the church always taught this, because that's not the case. I haven't been to every church. I don't know what every preacher preaches. I don't know.
Exactly.
But this is what I perceived. And most people just perceive something differently. And then, they perceive it and then they end up realizing they get it wrong and they move on.
Fair.
But in this process of living, I want you to expound more on what you were saying about the difference between happiness and joy.
So happiness is based on a circumstance. So maybe I got a promotion. Maybe you got a date. Maybe you and your husband are having a great time on vacation. Maybe you guys are getting along. Things are going good at home. You're happy. You feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
But the happiness only comes when something good happens.
Mm-hmm.
But then joy is based on who you are and who you are in Christ. And joy for me is only really developed through hard times. And still choosing to have a good attitude and choosing to rejoice and choosing to be like Paul and Silas and worship my way through that test or trial. Like, that's what's birthed joy in me. Like, I look back over our life and our ministry, it's been 10 years? We've been married 10 years and in ministry for the whole time, and what I found is through every single season, I'm like, all right, God, what's the beauty in this? Like, you're still in this. Like, yeah, I might be in a hard time. Just like Paul and Silas, they were in jail, but it's like, God will meet you there in that jail. He met Joseph in that jail and gave him favor. And it's like, while I go through ministry and go through life, I'm like, God, like, help me to produce joy in the midst of this hard time instead of me focusing on the circumstances. Because if I focus on the circumstance, happiness is going to leave and anger is going to come in and bitterness is going to come in and unforgiveness. So I've almost I'm learning, and this is constantly a work for me, is to practice just having good attitude, believing the best, and allowing joy to be produced in me.
Yeah. We've heard those things before. Happiness is based on how I feel. Joy is based on what I know.
Yeah.
I think that the question in itself, or even I think that the dialogue in talking about this, is so important, because so many people right now are saying, I'm not happy.
Yeah. And they don't know what it is.
Yeah, we know. I mean, we know a lot of married people who are right now seeking to get divorced. Are breaking up because they're saying, well, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
And so, and then that goes to another question. And that question is, should your spouse make you happy?
I think we talked about expectations a couple of weeks ago.
We did. We talked about it. But I think it's important, because it almost, the answer in itself.
That's not fair.
What?
For me to put the responsibility on my spouse to make me happy.
And you know what? That answer almost goes against everything in which I perceived that I heard from church. It was like, you're getting married, and in marriage, you need to fulfill your wife, and your wife needs to fulfill you.
And what your love language
And
is.
what's your love language? And what's this? And this person's not making me happy. This person doesn't do this. So then what we do is we end long-term relationships because of temporary, dissatisfaction.
Feelings. Exactly.
And so you walk out of a marriage because you're 7 years in, you walk out of the marriage, you say, I'm not happy right now. But the question comes down to, is it okay? So I've had guys I've sat down with and I say, okay, why aren't you happy? And they say, I'm not happy because, and they'll go through a list of things like, my wife is this, my wife says this, my wife does this, my wife does that. And I say, well, why aren't you happy? And they say, well, I just told you. I said, no, you just told me what she did or what she does. That doesn't tell me why you're not happy. And I think that for so long we have grouped together what people do to us, and we have allowed for that to somehow, encapsulate the idea that we can only be happy if they make us happy.
Do you feel like on the flip side of it, it is a responsibility? So so I know it's not my job to expect you to fulfill my happiness, but should I try to make you happy?
I'm gonna respond to that. I'm gonna respond to that right after this.
Babe, do you know how excited I get when I see HelloFresh in our kitchen? Like,
I get excited too.
You bring
I'm about to eat.
Right. Wait. Oh, I don't feed you?
No, that's not what I'm.
I don't feed you. So,
never mind.
So we get this box, right, that has all this meat for my husband. And it's got like 3 or 4 pictures, and I show it to him and I say, babe, which one do you want to eat today? And I love it because it saves me so much time and it's stress-free. I just say, look at which one you want. I'm not wasting food, so it's sustainable. I get the exact ingredients that I need, and it's flexible. If you don't want one picture, I show you another one, and it's delicious.
No, the fact that I love it is that it's there. And also you may call this crazy, but I love the pictures. It's just a picture to show you what the food looks like. So I can already get my mouth watered in anticipation of what I am going to get. I absolutely love it. Here's the thing, y'all. This is so awesome. Go to HelloFresh.com/LWL80 and use code LWL80 to get a total of $80 off, including free shipping on your first box. Additional restrictions apply. Please visit HelloFresh.com for more details. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/LWL80 and use code LWL80 to get a total of $80 off, including free shipping on your first box. Additional restrictions apply. Please visit HelloFresh.com for more details. I don't think that it is. I don't think that it is my responsibility to be your ultimate source of fulfillment. Sure. Let's break it down. Let's break it down like God. Or I'll do it like this. As a parent, I have a desire for my children to be happy.
Of course.
But above their happiness, I know I can't spoil them, because if my whole desire was just to make them happy, they'll be spoiled. So my desire is not that they are just solely happy, because some decisions that we have to make won't make them happy. Like you take away the video games, you take away the iPad, you take away the phones, you take away all that stuff, and guess what? They're not happy anymore. And you're like, well, why aren't you happy? And it's like, well, I'm not happy because you took something from me. I think that in the same way, that is how God is with us. That's why I hate the saying, God doesn't care about my happiness, because happiness is his emotion. And who gave us emotions? Who gave us the ability to feel? God did.
Yeah, sure.
So if he didn't, that'd be like me saying, I don't care if my kids are happy. That'd be a lie. I care that my kids are happy. It's not my sole concern, because I know that they need to mature. And unfortunately, removing things from you, discipline, all those things, it causes you to mature. Brokenness causes us to develop a deeper relationship with God. I think that anybody who desires a deep relationship with God, who are trying to go and get it through reading the Bible, prayer, and all those things, they will never get it that way. I think the only path, the only clear journey to a deep relationship with God is through brokenness, because it's only through brokenness that you begin to understand things like grace, mercy, forgiveness. It's the depth of it, because you find him in a very lowly place. But nevertheless, I don't think that it is my sole responsibility to just be concerned about your happiness.
So what's your responsibility in marriage?
I think first and foremost is maintaining the fact that my source, I need to make sure that my ultimate source of satisfaction comes from God, Like, I think that needs to be my number one responsibility. The problem that I've always had is that the spouse, like we look and we say, okay, now the two of you are married, now make each other happy. But the problem is that we are discomforted, uncomfortable, dissatisfied individuals trying to make the other person happy. And we lack what we're trying to give. We can't even give it the right way. And God's like, dude, your problem is you don't even have satisfaction in me. And then, but then we got to go here. So here's my question here, because this is a whole nother place. When we talk about finding satisfaction in God, what side of that, or what side of that should we find satisfaction in? And when I say, I believe it's a two-sided coin. One side, you have, I'm finding satisfaction in God being God. On the other side, I find satisfaction in everything that I do for God, or all the things I need to keep, the rules I need to keep in order for me to feel as though I still belong to Him.
I don't understand your question.
So, people, we like to say, it's one of the Christian colloquialisms, one of the Christian sayings we like to say is that you either find your joy in God.
Yeah.
Find your joy in God. Find your joy in God. Now, I'm practical.
Yeah.
If it ain't practical for me, then I don't get it. I gotta have something practical.
Yeah.
So when we say that, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm finding joy in who God is, in His entity, and His triune being? Or am I trying to find joy in God because of all the things that I believe He wants me to do? And if I don't do all these things, then I'm not good enough for Him.
All right. Obviously, I believe it's the first one. We find our joy in God because of who He is.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you're focused on your works and what you're doing, you're never going to feel like you're enough. If you're like me, who's a super perfectionist, who the Lord's breaking me from, like if I measure myself based on my works, I'll never be enough.
Mm-hmm.
But joy being produced in me means that I'm also being pruned. And so I'm thankful for the pruning. I've learned to be thankful. We do this often, babe, in our marriage. Like we look on the bright side of every situation immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Like no matter how hard it is, we're like, okay, the bright side is we learned this. The bright side is this. So for me, just, finding my joy in the Lord just means that I accept whatever portion He gives me. I mean, look at Job. He had everything stripped from him.
Yeah.
And he was a righteous man. He did nothing. Like literally, the devil had to get permission from God to attack him.
Mm-hmm.
He said, do whatever you want, but just don't touch his body,
mm-hmm.
right? Or don't try to kill him. And so literally he lost his cattle, he lost his family, he lost everything. And then his wife turned to him and was like, are you sinning? His friends are like, are you sinning? Curse God and die.
Yeah.
And instead he's like, no, should I just accept only good things from the Lord?
Yeah.
So even through that, he's like, you know what, God, whatever hand you deal me in life, I'm going to trust you in that. And my joy is going to be found in knowing that I'm a citizen of heaven and not here on the earth.
Yeah.
I feel like we get so caught up in this earth. This earth is not it.
Yeah.
And life is but a vapor. I mean, you can see, what in Lebanon, like that entire building just blew up. Like you look around and you're seeing COVID taking families out. And it's just like, we got to open up our eyes and look around and say, life is but a vapor.
Yeah.
Like we can't walk around like tomorrow's promised to us because it's not.
Yeah.
Are you barking up the wrong tree? Are you living for God? Because my joy comes from knowing I get to spend eternity with Him. I'm going to heaven. This earth is but a vapor. Thank God. You know what I mean? Like my hope is not in this world. My hope is not in what's going on in it. Now I'm in it and I'm going to be a good steward over it. But my hope is in the Lord and what He's called me to do.
Yeah. Yes. I think, going back to this whole piece again with this two-sided coin, I think on one side, and the reason why I asked the question and the reason why I want to take time to kind of go here for a moment is because in the past, because of because of my mentality, because also of my theology in the past, it was always based in this idea that, if I do all these good things, then you know what? I'm accepted by God.
Yeah.
And that's that's going to bring me happiness. That's going to bring me joy because I'm doing all the right things. The problem is that once I no longer do those things, I find condemnation, I find shame, I find regret, I find all this stuff, and I start beating myself up, and I'm not happy anymore. Then when I start doing something good, it's like, oh, I'm happy again. Then it ain't that, and I'm not happy anymore. And it's like my happiness becomes tied. My happiness becomes tied to what I do, not who He is. And it's so important that we really begin to separate those two things. Because they are not the same.
I don't know. I'm a little torn because I know we often say like, it's not about your works. You can't earn God. And people take that mentality and say, well, okay, well, I'm not going to pray. I'm not going to read my word. I'm not going to spend time with God. And then, but God loves me and it's fine. And his grace is significant. And I can just I can do whatever because my works will never add up. Right. And I feel like, is there a fine line? Like, we have a part to play, I feel like.
Well, okay, so
in our walks with him.
So the scripture says, and this is the one key thing that people like throw out. They'll say, well, the Bible says, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? May it never be. Absolutely not. We should not. Now, what I go back to, and when I dissect that question and really get the answer, dissecting the question, the thing is, my thing is here, at what point does grace not abound? Because I believe it was Leonard Ravenhill who so famously said, it is the day in which we die that all grace shall be cut off forever.
Yeah.
Because there'll be no more ability for you to make a decision. It's like at that day that you die, that's when grace cut off forever. So, and then to go back to that, shall we continue in sin? Just a question in itself, I think really requires deep evaluation and deep analysis. Shall we continue in sin? Then who's to say who is not continuing in sin? Because we're all continuing in sin.
I think it's the pursual of sin.
Well, whether it's the pursual or sin, whether it's the pursual, whether we're pursuing it or whether we're not pursuing it, there's not a person who's walking the earth right now who is blameless.
Of course.
There's not a person walking the earth right now who is not sinless. So whether we pursue it or not, all of us are continuing in it in some way, shape, form. What shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? May it never be. I believe that, that piece there, is so delicate. It's very delicate. Now, to going back to your whole point, when you say, well, is there a thin line? Absolutely. The Bible is very clear. It's James. Like James is one of the most, in my opinion, was one of the most practical writers of the book. James made it clear. He said, faith without works is dead. Yeah. You ain't got it. So if there's to be faith, whatever we believe, we're going to work. But I believe that what James was saying here was not this like this commandment that said that, okay, you do all these works. It's the idea that if I have faith, like whatever I believe, I know. So like sitting in the chair, for instance, I use this example all the time. I don't check. I just went to go eat. When I went and I sat down in the chair, I didn't check the chair's ability to sustain my weight. I just sat down in it. I had faith that the chair could withstand me. So my action corresponded with my faith. So my mouth may speak the lie, but my life will show the truth. And my faith will correspond with my action. And then that's going to show what is real. So to answer the question, is there a thin line? I mean, of course, you could say there's a thin line, but at the end of the day, his grace will abound.
Of course.
Yeah.
In James, it also says, draw close to God and he'll draw close to you.
Absolutely.
And I feel like.
But we do that in the midst of brokenness.
But we should do it when we're not, we're all broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to continue in that. But even on sunny days, we should still be drawing close to him, even on great days. Because I made that mistake when I first got saved. I was only drawing close to God when I had a problem. It was like emergency. I need 911. I need help. I'm about to get evicted. This is happening. That's happening. And God told me, he said, I'm still here on sunny days wanting to talk to you. Yeah. And he's like, draw close to me and I will draw close to you. I feel like we've gotten away from that. This generation's like all about getting their word on social media, on, maybe YouTube clips. And those are great things because we preach on YouTube. This is going on YouTube. Mm-hmm. But it's like, these are just crumbs of the master's meal. Like, have you sat down in prayer and sat down and read your word and like got full off of it? Mm-hmm. Or are you just dependent on everybody else's word to lead and guide you?
Yeah. Well, I do. I want to ask you that question after we come back from this. I have to come out from this. Man, I absolutely love ritual. They just came out with a ritual for men.
Yes.
And I have been taking them every day. I love the minty taste that I have. It's absolutely amazing. But here's the thing, we deserve to know what we're putting in our bodies. And that's why Ritual's founder is on a mission to reinvent the vitamin industry. Not only, do we have they have everything researched, all the nutrients, everything behind the women's multivitamin and the men's multivitamin, carefully chosen forms that are absorbable by the body. But here's the thing, they've been tested with their formula. Science-backed isn't just a buzzword for them, it's the standard.
I love it. And I've been using the women's as well.
Yeah.
And so I love it. It's so gentle on my stomach. And in the past, other multivitamins have really hurt my stomach. I love that it's vegan certified.
Come
And I'm
on.
happy that you're taking vegan things. Come on.
Of course you
Gluten-free,
are.
allergen-free. I mean, it's safe for your body, which is so important nowadays. And I also love that they use high quality ingredients.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. Daily changes can lead to big results, so start small today.
Yes.
Ritual is offering all of our listeners 10% off your first 3 months.
Come on.
Try it out. Satisfaction guaranteed. Go to ritual.com/LWL to start your ritual today. That's 10% off during your first 3 months at ritual.com/LWL. So now I want to come back to this. I want to ask you this. So, okay, I'm practical. So when you say things like, we're still talking about this whole thing of happiness, and we'll come back around to this. But when you say something like, okay, we need to draw near to God. How do you draw near to Him?
Through talking to him. How would I draw close to you? Communication, spending time with you, being around you. Say we're getting to know each other. What'd we do, babe? We talked on the phone for like the whole day. We got no work done, right? Because I'm trying to get to know you. I'm spending time with you. The same way we do with God is through prayer, through talking to him, through, reading his word, which is love letters to us. It teaches us how to live so we can recognize the voice of God. So for me, drawing close to God, and not all of that, but then also applying it, is drawing close to God. So saying yes to him and no to the devil, saying yes to walking in love and saying no to hate. You know what I mean? Guarding my heart. So having boundaries with relationships, all those things for me are drawing close to God.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I don't think that I believe that my relationship with God is stronger now than I believe my relationship is stronger with God now than it was when I was trying to keep tabs on everything that I did to draw close to him.
I don't keep tabs on it though.
That ain't. I knew you were gonna say that. That ain't what I'm
No,
saying.
babe.
But I'm talking about for me. I'm talking about for me. I ain't talking about for everybody. I'm talking about for me.
Yeah.
Because in the past, my thing was, if I did all of these things, then I felt like I would get to know him. I would get to know him in a deeper way. The issue that I had with that was that I didn't really have an idea of who he was. I was trying to develop a relationship with an entity that I had created in my mind of who he was. But I didn't really know him or who he was to really begin the relationship with him. It's like I didn't really know him. I knew of him. I knew an entity that I had in my head of who he was. I knew the rules that he gave to keep to understand who he was. I read his word, just seeking to really understand him. I read his things. So when I say things like, my relationship with him, I feel is deeper now. I love to read my word. I tell you one thing. I think that the times in which the Bible has made the most sense to me is not when I've read a commentary on a scripture. The Bible has made the most sense to me, and God has become bigger to me when there's something that I went through and I was able to see it. I was able to see it right in front of me. It's like what is it? The Chronicles of Narnia? I forget the girl's name she was away, and then the lion who represented God, whatever it was, she's been away from God for a couple of years. Then all of a sudden, she comes to the lion, and she when she sees him, she says, "Oh my goodness, you look so much bigger now. Like you got bigger." And he looked at her and he said, "No, I didn't get bigger." He said, "Over the years as you grew up, I got bigger to you." And it was like, hold up. Like, as I continue to grow and mature, then I really began to understand the depth of who he was.
Yeah.
And when I got that first, and it was like, okay, now everything else can kind of blossom, kind of grow. That isn't to say we don't need to read. It isn't to say we don't need to pray. Like I get my greatest time of prayer in the sauna. I like to pray. I like to pray to God. I guess you say I like to pray to God in hot places.
But what happens if like God gives you a word and you want to write it down?
I got my phone. I take my phone in the sauna.
Just put it in your phone.
My notes in my phone are everywhere. But here's the thing: God speaks to me. He speaks to me in a very pictorial way. I'm not really good. I'm not really good with sitting down in a classroom and learning God from somebody teaching me. I'm not really good at really sitting down in a church and listening to a pastor preach about him. I mean, it's good. Is
edifying and needed.
It's edifying. Yeah, I mean,
Take your tail to church.
you got to see all. We got to see all that. Blah blah blah. Disclaimer. You go whatever. But I'm very pictorial. So like when things like when it's starting to be fall, when autumn is getting ready to come, spring is ending, and the leaves are starting to fall, and I'm walking outside, and God is beginning to show me as the leaves fall. He's beginning to show me the concept of Ecclesiastes with different seasons and how different seasons mean different things. It's that kind of stuff. Well, when you're in your place of brokenness, you see that God is really near to the brokenhearted. You see the life of Job when you're in a broken place.
Yeah.
You see, I mean, you begin to understand Paul when Paul says, "I've learned to be content. I've known how to be content, whether I abase and I abound, because I've both abased and I've abounded."
Yeah.
And no matter where you stay, whether your hotel room is $100 a night or whether it's $1,000 a night, it's still a rented bed that somebody slept in the night before you got there. So, it's that idea that I'm pictorial, but now my relationship with him can blossom because I know how we relate one to another, which then takes me to this, and I can ask you this question after we come back from this break.
Now, the year 2020 has been kind of crazy, babe. You have to be honest with that.
Yeah.
And with everything that's going on in this world, I think it's so important that every single person listening under the sound of my voice has life insurance, you guys. And Policy Genius makes it super easy for you. In minutes, you can compare quotes from top insurers to find your best price. You can save $1,500 or more, you guys, a year by using Policy Genius to compare your life insurance policies.
Step 1. Go to policygenius.com. In minutes, you can work out how much coverage you need and compare quotes from top insurers to find your best price. Then step 2, apply for your lowest price. Step 3, the Policy Genius team will handle all the paperwork and the red tape. Policy Genius, it works for you, not the insurance company. So if you hit any speed bumps during your application process, they'll just take care of everything. They even have policies which allow eligible customers to skip the in-person medical exam and do it over the phone. That kind of service has earned Policy Genius a 5-star rating across over 1,600 reviews on Trustpilot and Google. So if you need life insurance, head to policygenius.com right now to get started. You can save $1,500 or more a year by comparing quotes on their marketplace. Policy Genius, when it comes to insurance, it's nice to get it right. So let me ask you this question, Faye. It's interesting because I think the common denominator we've been talking about here is centered around relationship. The first question I asked you was this. The first question I asked you was, do you think that we have a right to be happy? So now I go to it, and I'm glad you said happiness is a choice. First, before I ask you this question, let me ask you a question. What makes you happy?
Being with my family,
Mm-hmm.
finding the bomb vegan restaurant. Oh, that makes me so happy. Finding a sale. Oh, and then when I'm up on my stocks, that makes me really happy.
Mm-hmm.
Preaching makes me happy. Just worshiping the Lord, spending time with him.
Yeah. So it's like these things that make you happy. I think the common denominator between all of them is a sense of relationship.
Yeah.
It is how we relate with that thing. Like vegan, let's take your love for finding a great vegan restaurant. It's not the restaurant as much as it is the fact of the food. And I can relate with the food because the food is savory. The food is tasty. The food is well seasoned. I can relate with it. And I'm not happy when I taste it and it's not savory.
And it's trash.
When it's trash, when it's complete trash. When all they gave you was a salad and they got a bug in it. Like that, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
I'm dissatisfied. So now let's take that into marriage. Let's take that into other places where people say, I'm not happy. You mentioned something earlier I thought was so good. And you said, it's a choice. So is it possible for us to be in seemingly unhappy situations and choose happiness?
Absolutely. I feel like I do it all the time.
And let me ask you this question. How do you do it? Like what is that practical way you saying this is how we do it?
Because I've seen God's patterns in my life over and over again. Like every season doesn't last always. There's times where you'll plant. There's times where you're going to water. There's times where you have to plow. There's times where you'll see harvest.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just looked over my life and the patterns of it. And every hard time, I always see crazy, crazy breakthrough. I see God taking me to another level and another place. So for me, my hope isn't ever in a current season, even when it's going good. Because I'm like, you know what, God, I just thank you for bringing me here. But my hope still isn't in this season. It isn't in an open door. It isn't in a person, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because if I put my hope and my happiness in things and people, what happens if they leave? What happens if something happens to those people? You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I've learned.
And I would add to it. I think that if you're out there and you're listening and you say, well, I'm trying to figure out how to change, my happiness to this thing. I think that if you make a choice, and it is not an easy choice, but if you make a choice to change how you relate to what makes you unhappy, then ultimately you can have that source of happiness.
It could be like, all right, the vegan food was trash, but you have food. I'm thankful for this food. Maybe my husband is driving me up the wall, but I got a husband and somebody's a widow right now, or somebody's single, believing God. So I like to look on the bright side. That helps me.
I think that's good. Now, I mean, it's a little difficult. I mean, I like to say it's difficult for me sometimes because I fancy myself to be a pessimist. Like when it comes down to it, if that glass
is in the trash.
If that glass is halfway full, throw the whole glass away. It's all about to be over. Like the world about to end, pandemic gonna destroy everything. I know why y'all going back to church. Y'all better get your lives together. That's just what it is. It's pessimism. But I'm having to learn how to re-relate with how to relate with my relationships and how to relate them well.
Yeah.
So that when I look at them, I can make a choice. That's what Paul said. Paul said, listen, I've learned how to be content in all things. He said, whether I abase or whether I abound.
Come through.
Like I gotta know how to be happy, whether or not I mean oatmeal raisin cookies, or if you put peanut butter and cookies in front of me, which I believe peanut butter cookies are the worst. No, they're not the worst.
Oh,
I take that back.
They're so good.
White macadamia nut cookies.
Oh yeah.
I feel like whoever created those hated cookies. And they just wanted to create something. And then somebody was like, oh my goodness, I like them.
That's so real.
Chocolate chip cookies, trash.com, trash.edu, all of them. But it is this argument, y'all, that if you're trying to change your sense of happiness, and if you're trying to find happiness is an inside job.
Yeah.
Happiness is an inside job.
Yeah, nobody will ever be able to satisfy that because, I searched for happiness in all the wrong places, even before you. And then I figured when I met you, I'd gone on my man fast. I was like, I'm whole. I know who I am. No, it's almost like getting married revealed more of the issues that I needed to work on and areas I need to face. And that happy thing was real for me because I would look at you like, yo, you're supposed to make me happy and you're not making me happy. And in my head, I was doing things that made you happy. So I'm like, well, what about me? You know what I mean? And so my doing things for you became very conditional. It was like transactional.
Yeah.
Like if you do for me, I'll do for you. If you don't do for me, I'm not doing nothing for you. And so I'm so thankful that the Lord has just broke me from that. And now I do things for you because I love you and I love serving you and I love being married to you. And I do it because of that, not because I'm like, oh, he needs to touch me, or, oh, he's touching me right in this moment, or, oh, he needs to do this, this, and this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like it takes the pressure off the relationship, off of both of us.
Absolutely. I reiterate, I like what you said, that you're trying to find this sense of happiness in somebody. You're trying to find a sense of happiness in something. You're trying to find this sense of happiness in what you do. And that's you can't live that way, y'all.
It's real.
Like happiness is an inside job. And if you want to find happiness, you want to find that stuff, you got to change how you relate to your relationships. And you got to find the positive that's in it. But man, it's been a great conversation on happiness, man. Really glad we can have this thing, man. So glad y'all can join us. Can't wait for y'all to we can get on the next one. Listen, our anniversary is coming up, 10 years.
Oh, we were supposed to talk about that.
We are. I mean, we talk about happiness. We talk about, what makes me happy, all that kind of stuff.
Next week we're 10 years.
Next week is 10 years.
What are you getting
anniversary.
me for our anniversary?
I haven't even thought about it yet.
Babe.
What?
Really?
What's the problem?
You already got your gift.
What
Must
is
be
it?
nice.
What is it? What we say? What we say?
You're not making me happy right now.
Oh yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, I thought I'd be like, well,
I'm just kidding.
all right.
I just want to know.
I have no idea. I really have no idea. I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
When are you going to think about it?
I don't know. Our anniversary is on the 14th, so around like the 12th, 13th.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The good news is I have no expectations. I trust you.
Look at you. Look
I
at
trust
you.
you, baby.
Look at you.
You always come through. I'm not
Hey,
worried.
come on, to the man. And then my birthday, I'll be 34 years old.
Yes.
August 16th.
Baby, tear.
In like 2 Sundays.
I know. I'm so excited.
Yep. I'm exiting my crucifixion year.
Yeah.
My crucifixion year. It's been quite a crucifixion too.
2020. Throw it away. I would say you
Quite a
got to cross out
crucifixion.
Revelations and put 2020 because
Yeah.
it's real.
It is.
Right underneath.
Well, y'all, God bless y'all. Make sure you share this. Make sure you pass on to your family and friends. Subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. So glad to be with y'all again. Thank y'all for joining Life with the Lindseys. Bye.